Alright, so right off the bat, if you're watching this video with the question in mind, should I watch X-Men 97, the new show on Disney Plus by Marvel Studios Animation that is a continuation of X-Men the Animated Series from the 90s? The answer is yes. If you love the X-Men, yes. If you love the old X-Men show, obviously yes. If you're kind of ambivalent on the X-Men, but you you enjoyed maybe some movies, but you're not like a humongous fan, I still think yes. I think it's really good. If you hate the X-Men, then I don't know what to tell you. If you hate the X-Men, for some evil senator or something, then you're probably not gonna like the show. But I think everybody else, if you go in looking for the best version of this show, you're probably gonna find it because it is spectacular. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what I am excited for about this show, things that I saw that I think, oh, that was really cool, or that looks like it's going to lead to something really cool in the future. I'm not going to really go and try to spoil big, storylines because, yeah, I don't know what's happening in this show. I don't have a script or something. But when you see a certain thing happen, you go, oh, I know what they're doing here. If you've read that comic. And obviously, I'm an internet, YouTube, pop culture reviewer, commentator, whatever you want to call whatever this is that I do. And I talk about Marvel stuff and I talk about DC stuff a lot, but my favorite thing out of all of that is the X-Men, without a doubt. Always has been. I think I grew up at the perfect time for it. The animated series was huge. X-Men Evolution was huge. Then the movies took over everything for a while. The comics have always been at least interesting. And, sometimes they've gone through these really high peaks where oh, some cool X-Men stuff is going on right now. I grew up with some really fun X-Men video games. So yeah, I'm sure you can see over my shoulder I have all the toys. A lot of them are new because they're from the line created for this show. So I'm already very thankful that that exists. Also, I have right here, these are the Hulk hands of this show. So you do this, and then they come out as Wolverine claws. They're pretty cool. All this goes to say, yes, I'm a pop culture critic, and I love a lot of these heroes and characters and all that, but the X-Men are easily my favorite. And I did make a video not too long ago that was the why I'm worried about this show, but that was talking about I'm worried because that seems to be what Marvel is focusing on in this Ghostbusters afterlife kind of way, where instead of moving forward with this franchise and these characters, we are really leaning in on this nostalgia instead of cultivating a new audience. And that's how a lot of these fandoms tend to sputter and maybe die. I hope that right now Marvel is working on something Academy X show set in the present day, a cartoon, or maybe it's part of the MCU, but I hope the kids get that so that they can connect with these characters too. The same way that I did, and now I'm coming back to them as an adult and really enjoying it. But I think when people saw that video, some of them were like, oh man, this guy doesn't like this new show. I had not seen the show yet, but also I was very excited about it. I will say the things that caught me right off the bat, I'll tell you exactly when X-Men 97 won me over. And I mean, besides marketing stuff that I think has been good. And no, it wasn't just when the theme song started, although it was pretty soon into the theme song. So there's a bit in the animated series theme song because they added some new things, more looking at Mr. Sinister and being all scared, but they took some old things that had always been there and then redid them. And they made them look about the same, which Storm shooting out lightning bolts, similar. But I remember when I saw the beginning and they did that bit where Rogue gets caught by Sentinels and then whips them over her head and destroys the Sentinels. They redid that, but they made it way more dynamic, and she really puts her body into it, and it's so cool looking. And that was my first indication that oh, this is going to be something new. This is why they made that show. It's not just so they can make it again. It's so they can make it again, but take different, animation influences, different animation technology, maybe just different people who have different ideas about how to animate certain mutant powers or something like that. And they're going to take this show and put it through that lens. So we are going to get something new. I think the first Cyclops fight was a big version of that. That fight where he's in the warehouse blasting around and kind of using his optic blast to propel himself around, and that was incredible. And if they did something like that in the movie, it would be, that's all you would need, I think, to sell everybody on no, Cyclops is cool. I've seen so many people today on Twitter posting oh man, Cyclops is awesome. And I'm yeah, we all known that for a while, but we didn't have proof. So it's great that we have proof now. I think that bit where he lands, I saw someone on Twitter call it the greatest superhero landing ever. I think that's pretty accurate. That was incredible. But yeah, so the animation was great. Dialogue, just writing, all that stuff was great. And these are things that we as comic fans kind of saw coming. Because if we saw certain images in the trailers, or even the end of that trailer where he said, everything that your professor built belongs to me, comic readers or people that are just familiar with some of these X-Men stories were oh, we're doing that. We're doing the Magneto takes over the X-Men. I believe it is X-Men 200 is the trial of Magneto. We're doing that storyline or some version of that. And we thought, oh, that's pretty cool. That's not what I was expecting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that ends up being. And then they managed to do that in the show, and it's awesome. It's a really, really excellent adaptation of that bit we all saw coming. However, in the show, other things happened, things that we as comic fans were also familiar with but did not know were going to happen, and some of those are pretty wild. And I would say there's a scale. I think there's going to be like YouTube thumbnails that really go out of their way to like spoil all of this for you. So if you're watching this, you're like, I don't want to be spoiled, that's fine, but I would stay away from YouTube. But there's certain storylines that we didn't know they would be doing. So like, for instance, this one just happens in episode 2, but the depowered Storm storyline. Obviously in the comics, it's a little bit different because it's a different character, although it's a character that we did see in episode 1. So it's like kind of related. And the way that they get, well, I guess we don't know. I think we know that he built that gun. That's not usually where a character that shoots Storm with the gun gets the gun. Usually get it from someone. I don't think they're going to do that here. But besides that, we also know what happens after Storm loses her powers. Because as I'm imagining, people can tell from even seeing a recent comic, like she gets her powers back eventually. Although like it takes some time, and the things that she does without her powers are still pretty cool, and some of the coolest things Storm has ever done. So if they're going to adopt those storylines in the comics, I'm very excited for that. And those things are like good storytelling things, right? Those two ideas. But if a character we disagreed with, but we knew was honorable at heart, had to, because his friend died, continue his friend's dream and kind of change his course of action, change his approach. Or what happens when a character who is very powerful and has been, crushing it, loses her powers? How does she react to that? Those are very simple. So like it makes sense why they're doing that here. What they're also doing are 2 of the sillier X-Men stories. And one of them is, again, one I saw coming because of marketing and stuff. And another one is one that I did not see coming. So I'm going to go through both of them. These are spoilers for the comics. These may not be spoilers for the show because I don't know how the show is going to do this, but I have a feeling they'll probably get at some of it. So if you don't want to see any of this coming at all, just turn it off right now. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe and follow and whatever it is that you can do on the platform you're watching this on. Okay, so 2 storylines that come up in episode 2 that I think are amazing. 1, this whole second Jean business. So like for me, one of the things that got me really excited about this show before it came out was when the Madelyne Pryor Funko Pop showed up, and they was like, oh, Madelyne Pryor is going to be in this show. And if you don't know, Madelyne Pryor is a clone of Jean Grey created by Mr. Sinister, who has a baby with Scott. This is when Jean is dead from Phoenix, kind of, although it's unclear. Like, she wasn't actually, it was a clone of her that became the Phoenix as well. And there's another Jean that just shows up in like an egg, and she's good. So it's complicated, but by a very strange set of circumstances, the X-Men had both Jean Grey on one team that knew about her and knew she was Jean Grey, but then on this other team there was a character who was a clone of Jean Grey, although she didn't know that at the time, who had married Scott when Jean died because Scott was sad, and then when Jean showed up he pushed her right to the curb and she got mad, and then she made a deal with the devil guy, and also kind of Mr. Sinister, although it's more the devil is what turns this story into what it is, and she became the Goblin Queen, Madelyne Pryor. So the story is called Inferno. It is one of the first big event books in comics that worked the way it did, which is it was a story that the X-Men were doing, but because the story of this is basically New York turns into hell on Earth, a lot of the other superheroes had Inferno tie-in books, and now that's how one of these events go. But like when they did Secret Invasion in the late 2000s, that was a storyline that was going on in these Secret Invasion comic books, and the main characters of that were also doing their own thing. But like every character, like She-Hulk, who was not very interested in Secret Invasion stuff, even though she was hanging out with the Skrull at the time. So like she should have been a little bit more interested than she was. But like they got a couple of Secret Invasion issues. Everybody got a little bit of that. And Inferno, I believe, was one of the first ones of those. It's also just like, if you just talk to someone about like, what are the X-Men? What do you think they are? What's important about them? I imagine many fans of the movies and some of the shows would say they're a civil rights metaphor, much like Deadpool says as he skips through the caution tape in Deadpool 2, a dated metaphor for racism from the 60s. They're that. They're, superheroes that all have different powers, but I don't think people quite get a handle for because they've never been able to get this right in the movies. They are a weird, horny soap opera, like Days of Our Lives going on spring break or something like that. It is a problem sometimes, but like when they get it right, an X-Men story is like these big philosophical questions about like who are you and society and everything, and at the same time this soap opera where this person is dating this one's clone and she didn't know that the other one was a clone of her, and now she's turned evil and she's going to deal with the devil, and oh yeah, she's got a son that's going to grow up to be a certain time traveling member of the Summers family. So I don't know if we'll see him. I think we've already seen him in the animated series, but not like he's never explained to us like, by the way, here's who my mom is. But like it's a story. Like I would say, this is the toy of Goblin Queen over my shoulder. You can see her, she's got a black on here. Pick her up. I'm gonna drop Nathan. Sorry, Nathan. It comes with a baby that has just a terrifying face. This is the baby. I don't know if the terrifyingness is making it, but I tried already to like bring this thing to the camera and it didn't work. But just trust me, this baby looks weird. But Madelyne Pryor, she is like Jean Grey, but evil, evil witch Jean Grey. And she's got like this, low cut top. Oh my God. And like high heels. Incredible. In the comics, this character looks so different. And like, I think the fact that we're getting the kids' TV version of Madelyne Pryor to me is unbelievable. It's like if they had to make a Kids Bop version of the Thong Song. A lot of me would just be like, why are they going to do it? What are they going to rhyme with what? Will it still maintain the essence of Cisco's Thong Song? Or will it be something completely different? Like, that's part of why I'm so confused about this Madelyne Pryor thing. On the other side of things, there's a storyline going on that I never thought they were going to adapt, where, and I don't know all of this, like I don't know exactly what this story is going to look like in the animated series in X-Men 97, but in the comics, Rogue and Magneto tried to set up a sanctuary for mutants in the Savage Land, which is a land of dinosaurs. It's the land that time forgot in Antarctica. It's where the X-Men go there and hang out sometimes with Tarzan. But it was where we learned that Rogue and Magneto can touch. And they had a little thing going. And it is a very strange relationship that does not get brought up a lot, mostly because like Rogue and Gambit are maybe one of the most solid pairings in the X-Men. Like, say what you will about Scott and Jean, they're like the flagship couple of the X-Men, but they have been broken up a lot. As far as Rogue and Gambit are concerned, they're way more steady. And it's come up a couple times since. There was an Age of Apocalypse storyline where it was a little different. Rogue had absorbed Polaris's powers, Magneto's daughter, and because of that, she couldn't absorb any more Magneto powers, like get canceled out so they could touch each other and stuff. But in the Savage Land story, it turned out that Magneto could like create a microscopic force field so that Rogue could like touch him, but her powers couldn't get through. And obviously that's always been Rogue's deals. Like, she wants to touch people. It's a very reasonable thing to want to do, especially Gambit and X-Men 97. Like, they're doing a lot of work, and not that they have to do a lot of work, but like it's clear that there was someone who was drawing Gambit and then there was someone behind him that was like sexier. And he's Gambit. I'm looking over there because I have a Gambit toy. It just didn't kind of fit into this little diorama. He couldn't take the place of Strong Guy or someone important. I will say too, because we really didn't get much of the Madelyne Pryor reveal, but that is the big thing at the end, is like someone shows up, someone that appears to be Jean, and she's like, hey, I'm Jean Grey, where are the X-Men? In my head, I was like, oh, does the other one not know she's a clone? Because sometimes that's how it works. And then you saw her face and she's like mad, and you're like, oh, she knows. She was like, oh, I hope that other me never shows up one day in the middle of nowhere. I also think it's cool that like a lot of these stories all came around the same time in the comics. These all happened roughly between X-Men 150, I want to say, and like X-Men 250, which there have been a lot of X-Men comics. Like X-Men 200 is Trial of Magneto. It is also the birth of Nathan. Those two events do happen at the same time. The Savage Land stuff, I think, is a little later, and the Storm losing her power stuff is a little earlier. So like some of the things have been changed and the specifics have been changed, right? Magneto's the target of the assassination, not Rogue, like in the original comics. But that's what makes it so fun, is that's like, we don't know what's going to happen. Even if I thought I knew a storyline they were going to do or something like that. Even if like I thought I knew they were going to do Excalibur, I wouldn't know exactly how. I wouldn't know who's going to be there, what's going to happen to him. I would just know like the shadow, like the, the outline of this idea. And that, I think, makes it really rewarding to comics fans, while at the same time not robbing us of the surprise of knowing that stuff's going to come. So like, I really don't know what to expect. The only other thing that I think we know is happening, I've been told, because they like just said what some of the episodes are called, I believe, and again, this may be kind of a spoiler if you don't want to know this. I don't think this is like a huge detail, and I think the episode will start. You'll go, oh, that's what it is. We're gonna get a Mojo episode, which I'm very excited about because he was the antagonist that I picked for my Deadpool 3 pitch, which I love, and I love the idea of having Mojo and more stuff. So yeah, I mean, listen, I made this video just to say, like, I'm excited about this show. As an X-Men fan, the possibilities are endless. The animation's great, the action's great, everybody that's working on it is great, except for that guy they fired. Maybe we'll see how that one shakes out. Which, you know, that's how good this show is. That was something that happened a couple days before the show was released, and people aren't really talking about it anymore. I remember seeing his name in the credits and going, where do I know that name from? Oh, right. Yeah, that's who that is. And I don't know. I mean, they deleted their socials, so who knows? We'll find out, I'm sure, if something was going on. But yeah, I think like I am incredibly happy with everybody that's been making the show. It seems like they've been working on it for a lot of time. I've seen a lot of them on Twitter talking about like, oh, I made this scene 2 years ago. And it's like, that's awesome. I cannot imagine holding on to that secret. Although I'm gonna say, when I went to New York Comic-Con, I spoke with one of the toy makers, just saying like, oh, these X-Men toys are great, like these are so good. And toy maker, like a little guy with like a smock like Geppetto, but like a guy from the Marvel Legends team. And I was like, yo, this X-Men animated series, like, thank you for making a Wolverine that's so short, he's perfect, I love him. And he basically said, like, whatever you think X-Men 97 is gonna be, like, it's gonna be better than that. And so I've been holding on to that and hoping that that would hold true, and indeed it seems to have. So yes, it's 2 days, you know, things could change. Episodes could really stink in the future, but even if it was just these two, like, I would say this is a grand slam. I cannot wait to give whoever wrote these episodes and like whoever's working on them, besides that one guy who they fired, the keys to the X-Men in the future, because I think it's going to make really cool stuff. I can't wait to see some of this stuff, like the live action equivalent of them in the big MCU stories. So I'm really excited, happy about the show, and if anybody wants, I don't know, just like reading recommendations, read Inferno. It's a crazy storyline. I would say read maybe a little bit of Wikipedia stuff before, just so you know what was happening, but like, I don't think we're gonna do that, but maybe we will. And I cannot believe that is true. So thanks for watching, everybody. Subscribe and all that stuff, and I'll see you around.